Hi guys, Josh here. Welcome to FramesPerSecond. Today we're going to be shooting in the city behind me with some Ilford Delta 3200. Now we're shooting this high-speed film because I'm going to be using my Fuji GW690, which only goes to f3.5, so I'm going to need that extra speed. And just for the clickbait and the lulz, I'm going to shoot one of these rolls at 12,800 ISO. So we're going to get a push 2 stops as well. And it probably won't be usable, but maybe with the 6x9 negatives, the graininess won't be too hideous. So we'll see how we go. But anyway, let's get to it.
I haven't shot Delta 3200 in 120 before, so it's the first time seeing it. This shot obviously wasn't the best to get because it was quite dark around, and obviously being at f4, yeah, it's not going to be at its sharpest either, though it is still pretty good. This is 6x9 we're talking about, so big negs means that the grain isn't as much of a problem unless it's underexposed, which this shot kind of is, though you do get that nice light reflection in the water. But yeah, if you zoom in, it looks quite nice. A friend of mine was borrowing my Fuji GW690, and so that's why it hasn't really been featured on the channel that much, but I've got it back now and I'm using it more, so I will do a proper video on that camera after a few more rolls, just because I need to get back into it. But yeah, here it is definitely sharper. I think I was able to go to 5.6 or even 8, and so yeah, I was able to get more out of it. With this camera, I do think you need to be on at least a 25th of a shutter for it to be like nice and sharp, and 5.6 and or f8 as well. But yeah, it was tricky with this kind of lighting situation, but I was kind of pushing the limits of it to see what I could really do with it. And so yeah, I thought, considering that, yeah, I was metering these at 3200 ISO, yeah, even though the blacks are still not that great, it still is kind of decent. And because this is a film that has a pushing process built into the development of it already, the blacks definitely aren't going to be the best part of it when you're shooting this late at night. But it's still pretty usable, especially for this kind of camera that does have a really slow lens. If I was shooting my Mamiya 645 with my 1.9 lens, different story. But here with the f4, you're not getting as much light, but it's still a nice kind of grain going on here for 3200. And I think that is mostly because it is 6x9, which is a pretty large negative, so it does kind of limit that a bit, make it more usable and less harsh to look at. Yeah, for some reason 2 rolls didn't turn up. I think it was just because they were probably underexposed. I know one I forgot to change the shutter, and so it probably was a lot darker than I would have liked. I ended up having dinner at Red Hook, which is quite nice. They had a really good burger, and I also had deep fried Oreos, which were great as well, but I forgot to kind of get any footage of it. So unfortunately, can't see that here. But here we load in another roll that I'm getting pushed to 12,800. Unfortunately, this shot was metered a bit darker than I would have liked. I was aiming for the person in the middle shirt, but it didn't end up turning out. And maybe the lighting just wasn't enough to really get it. It looks bright here, but that might not be the case of how it actually was to the human eye, because it definitely was a bit darker for me. And then I got a shot of this, and this I actually was impressed because it was a kind of dim light, so I wasn't expecting to get this much out of it. But yeah, there's still a good amount of detail, and the grain for 12,800 ISO still looks quite nice. It's not a bad grain at all, and the 6x9 is definitely helping with that. And same with this shot. I do kind of like that kind of frame in a frame that you get here. Blacks obviously look disgustingly grainy, but inside it's really nicely exposed. And yeah, when you zoom in, yeah, you still able to get a nice detail, and the 6x9 really makes that grain less harsh. And I do kind of wish I got a bit closer, but I didn't want to annoy this guy too much, so yeah, it wasn't focused, it was sharp, grain looked nice. I was quite impressed by the 12800. I was expecting it to be a lot grainier, and obviously shooting 6x9 helped to reduce the harshness of it. But this shot coming up in particular turned out really fantastic, and I was able to be on a higher f-stop because it was nice and bright. And so this probably is the sharpest shot of the lot, and that grain still looks pretty damn clean. Just look at that. And here we're zoomed in at 150%, and you're still gonna get nice sharp detail on that sign. This next shot, I definitely did try to be sneaky, but I got some motion blur, which is unfortunate because you only get 8 shots. But I mean, it still looks alright. I mean, exposure is good, but yeah, I should have been on a higher shutter speed, and that's always the battle with getting exposure at night. I thought this turned out pretty great. I was really surprised about the quality and how usable the grain was, and that it wasn't too harsh and unbearable. Here we have this last shot, which the focus is a little bit off, but I still really like how it turned out, just the mood of it. And the grain, it's a very nice and pleasant grain. Like, it is 6x9, which really helped, but this reminds me of HB5 and Tri-X that I've gotten pushed, but the focus was a bit off, unfortunately. If you're going to do this, definitely shoot it on medium format. I think if you did it in 35, it would be way too harsh and the grain would be way too chunky, but on medium format, particularly 6x9, it turned out quite well. So it was a fun experiment, and I recommend giving it a go.
That's all the time we have for today. Let me know your thoughts on the film, the images, and the pushing to 12,800 in the comments below. Let me know what you thought, whether it was a bit too much or maybe they turned out right. I don't know yet. But anyway, please like and subscribe, turn those post notifications to know when there's a new episode. Anyway, I'm Josh. This has been Frames Per Second. Just get out there, shoot some film.